Okay, our final outline and video will be on the future of advertising. It's kind of hard to predict exactly what the future of advertising will be. We're pretty sure it'll have to do with digital media, but that itself is changing almost continually by the day. So that's hard to predict also, but we're going to talk about it some anyway. And this last outline and video is based on Adland by Mark Tungate. That's the book we started out with, and we're going to end up with a discussion based on that book. By the early 1990s, it was obvious that fragmenting television audiences and the coming of the internet would change a lot of things, really everything having to do with the advertising industry. In 1994, the chairman of Procter & Gamble, and Procter & Gamble is maybe the biggest consumer products company in the country, certainly very close to that. The chairman, Edwin Arts, predicted that television is about to change big time. He had a speech that he gave to a large group, and he saw on the horizon video on demand, pay-per-view, streaming, video, interactive video games, and all of these involving little or no advertising, and yet occupying the time and attention of people more and more, and taking them away from traditional television and traditional advertising. And as far back as the early 1960s, West Coast ad man Howard Gossage, he was influential in starting the environmental movement, predicted that things could go wrong for advertising, that advertising would have to change. He said advertising may seem like shooting fish in a barrel, the fish being the audience, but the fish don't hold still as well as they used to, meaning that the audience has so many more choices now than it once did at a time when basically there were 3 television networks and they had so much to themselves. Gossage believed that an ad should be like one end of an interesting conversation. In other words, he believed in interactive advertising. We have, and we've talked about that recently, the idea of the audience being involved in the advertising. I don't have a video here, but I do have an article on Howard Gossage, and I'm going to see if I can find a particular place in here. I wanted to read part of it to you. There it is. In this and other campaigns, Howard Gossage created a new style of advertising that he called interactive, some 40 years before anyone coined that term for digital communications. He then used his interactive style to get people to opt in, create communities, and converse with the brands he was advertising. He foretold what's happening in the internet and social media. That alone should be sufficient to win him universal respect. But the ads were just one aspect of his brilliance. He also was the first ad man to recognize the potential in integrating public relations into his communications plan. So this is something we've talked about recently. So Howard Gossage was a visionary, someone who saw the future of advertising long before the future had made itself obvious. There's a company called Droga 5. I guess we could call them an advertising agency. Advertising Age did, the magazine Advertising Age, called Droga 5, the agency of the decade, for the decade just passed from 2010 to 2019. David Droga is the CEO, the founder of Droga 5. He says, I want clients to give us the freedom to come back with a myriad of communications solutions that may involve entertainment, architecture, community, and online. So not just traditional advertising, but all kinds of ways of reaching an audience. So there's a bit of an interview here with David Droga that we'll watch.
I've been quite vocal about this. I'm a greedy creative and I love technology, but technology is not a solution, it's a canvas. And I feel like when you can sort of understand how best to use it, how it serves the idea, then it's brilliant.
Most of what you're doing has an air of freshness to it. How do you guys stay fresh? What is it about the chemistry of your organisation that makes it unique?
I don't know, I think there's a weird alchemy of the people we have here, which is about not settling and just being restless and curious and not sort of, like we enjoy the hype of what we are and what we do, but we don't believe it. So we're constantly trying to sort of look at what's around the corner as opposed to a sort of rear vision mirror of successes or what was deemed good or a benchmark, you know, because I feel like we're an industry that likes to celebrate itself and have benchmarks, but that forces us to always sort of reference something and try and emulate something from before. And I don't know how we've managed to do it. We've managed to buck that trend where we're constantly looking for what's next. And it's not about just being different for the sake of it. I feel like that's one thing that's important about us. We're always looking for what we think can be the right thing, even if that is very traditional and stock standard, but if it's the right solution, we'll go for it.
So that is David Droga with Droga 5, the advertising agency of the past decade, according to Advertising Age. Here's some highlights of their work.
Titled Decoded.
The pages of the book have been showing up all over the country.
There is a video making its way around the web right now that appears to show
graffiti artist named Mark Echo spray painting the side of Air Force One.
The Air Force actually checked to see whether the plane had been vandalized.
Battle apes, party sharks, friendship.
Nobody has ever seen anything like this.
It's time for the Great Schlep. The Great Schlep.
The Great Schlep.
The Great Schlep.
Great Schlep.
Local restaurants are chipping in to provide safe drinking water for children around the world. It's called the TAP Project.
This is the biggest project for UNICEF in 56 years.
It is truly the first sunrise of the next phase of your life.
Honey Maid, we're unafraid to sell their products in commercials showing same-sex parents.
Creating what you want is not listening to the outside noise.
So we'll pause that there, but obviously very edgy work that Droga 5 does, and a lot of this is in the realm of viral video. It's not traditional advertising. It's the kind of thing that gets shared. It gets publicity. That uses public relations. You saw someone, I think was on the Jay Leno show, Tonight Show. So it's the sorts of things that are getting what we called earned media through public relations, and that's a very effective way of communication. Kevin Roberts with Saatchi & Saatchi said, "In the future, there will be more screens, not fewer. Our job is to create emotional connections with people." So by more screens, he is referring to the fact that you all probably, maybe right now, but certainly very much of the time, you're holding a smartphone in your hand, and you're not using it just to make phone calls or even to text, but a lot of times you're watching some sort of video content on that small screen. Advertising agencies are specialists. Have become specialists in the short film. The smaller the screens are, so again with smartphones, the more attractive short films become. You're much more inclined to watch using a smartphone or a small screen a short piece than you would a long form thing, which you're going to be more inclined to watch, on the flat screen on your wall. Viral spots are self-selecting, meaning that they find their audience, or the audience finds them, really, is what happens. They are not paid advertising. This is in the realm very much of earned media and public relations. This is using social media effectively. There are advantages and disadvantages of this. Of course, with paid advertising, you know exactly where it's going to appear. You know pretty much who that audience is. You know when it's going to appear. But of course, there is the cost involved with that. If the viral video or short film is not entertaining enough, then it will not attract an audience, and certainly nobody will pass it on. It will not become viral. So it has to be good. It has to be entertaining. Brands must disguise the selling aspect of their advertising in short films. It can't be too obvious about that, or it loses the effect. I'm going to show you here. This is very, very popular viral film. This was for the company Canadian Tire. So this was a Canadian short film. Very successful. This I think ran during the Olympics, the last Olympics.
Hey, real quick, before you get to the video you're about to watch, I'd like to give you 500
running through my thin gray hair. Though I don't have any plans tonight, I'm not going anywhere. Well, I should have seen this coming. Don't know why I'm surprised.
When the best of us steps up, our nation stands a little taller. We all play for Canada.
The world's most viral commercial of 2017 is this little story with big intentions that imagine a better world. It has been viewed without so much as a penny of influencer support in the hundreds of millions of times. And with 3.8 million shares, it has been shared more than twice as much as this year's top 10 Super Bowl commercials combined. Now, there's not a client in the world that doesn't ask me, how do you make a commercial that goes viral? It's everybody's intent, because the intent is to create something that makes people feel, and feel on a basis that transcends languages and politics and everything else. And while I would be disingenuous if I stood here and said there wasn't an element of timing, or perhaps a small element in luck, in this commercial wheels going viral, it's also important to note that there were some solid storytelling principles behind the film we made. The first was authenticity.
So this goes on for several more minutes, and we'll not watch the whole thing, but you can watch the rest of it if you want to yourself. But that's a great example of viral filmmaking and promoting a company, Canadian Tire, and the name of that little film is Wheels. So that connects with Canadian Tire, but it's a very subtle way of promoting the company. Even conventional spots, instead of beginning and ending their lives on TV, enjoy a parallel existence on YouTube. So if a commercial now is created for television, traditional television, it also likely will be seen on YouTube and potentially become a viral video. There's a company in Greenville, and I wish we'd had the opportunity to bring Derek Price, who is the owner of the company, before this group this time, and I still hope to be able to present Derek Price to some of you in some fashion or another. But Derek operates the Celebrate Media Group, and they produce viral videos on the local level. We're going to look at one of their videos here, not so much promoting some particular organization, but explaining what Celebrate Media Group does and how they operate. This is their Facebook page. And let me see if I can find the particular one that I'm looking for. I believe this is it. Well, no, I'm sorry, this is it. Here we go.
Feel pretty lucky most. In the video making business, we feel pretty lucky most days. We get to see we get to go inside factories to see how things are made. We film musicians doing what they love on stage. We get to help people sell big, beautiful real estate developments, and pickup trucks, and cornmeal, and healthcare, and electricity, and water, and even airplane seats. We film in schools to tell the stories of all the great things happening inside their classrooms. Sometimes we film on school playgrounds with musical instruments. And we even film hundreds of people spelling out our customer's logo. But the most enjoyable thing we do is actually simpler than all that. It's all about people. 1 year ago, we launched a weekly web video series to tell the uplifting, inspirational stories of the people living all around us. And we called it Celebrate Hunt County. We had no idea if folks would actually watch it or if we could find sponsors to support it. But Celebrate Hunt County turned into an instant hit, a local viral sensation that averages around 20 to 30,000 views every week on Facebook. People around here love it. We also love making Celebrate Hunt County. We get to tell stories about people helping kids at Christmas time, a volunteer coach who inspires from the sidelines, our community rallying together after serious storm damage, a house that some people believe is actually haunted, and our most popular episode ever about a couple of lovebirds. If you've watched it, thank you. If you've let us interview and film you, thank you. And to our sponsors who make this uplifting programming possible, thank you. We couldn't do it without you. In fact, we like making Celebrate Hunt County so much that we decided to make a change and name our company after it. Because there's nothing we want our business to do more than lift spirits and unite communities.
So that's taking place just over in Greenville, and some very nice work that is being done there by Derek Price with Celebrate Media. There's something called nudge theory, interesting concept, a way to present choices to your audience in a way that subtly promotes the one you want them to make. A nudge is anything that serves to predictably cause people to behave in a certain way without removing their choice in the matter. So this is a good deal more subtle than standard advertising. We'll look at a video on this for a minute or so.
Whoa, just 1 second. Is your business trying to complete strangers?
If a store wants to sell more of something, there are many things it can do. Signs could be placed around the store to advertise a specific aisle, and ads could attract people with coupons. But small, imperceptible changes can work just as well, and at a fraction of the cost. It's a concept called nudging that more and more companies are hiring psychologists to study and use. Instead of advertising directly, they might paint the toothpaste aisle with a reflective coating. To you and I, this would seem like a meaningless design decision, but as customers walk by, they see themselves, including their teeth, reflected in the mirrored shelves. A few steps later, they're more likely to put some whitening toothpaste in their cart. If asked why they bought it, people might make up a reason, or maybe admit that they didn't like the look of their teeth, but they wouldn't suspect that the store planned it. Nudging can come in a million different tiny forms. One section of a grocery store might be better lit, making you move in its direction, or more profitable items might be placed on shelves at eye level, making them easier to see. But they can also be the heart of a business. Costco is designed more like a warehouse than a store. It's designed specifically not to be convenient, because while you're running around trying to find something, you'll spot some other things to buy as well.
So we'll pause it at that point. You get the idea there of nudging, which is not advertising per se. It's more of a marketing strategy. But could certainly complement advertising, might even replace advertising in some respect. TBWA Helsinki created a unit called Game Lab to place brands within video games. We talked about that a few minutes ago. The brand then needs to be an integral part of the game. So they did this with McDonald's in particular in China. The players unlock hidden game modes and get free power-ups. Here's an example of that.
Say hi to the future of coffee drinking. Muki by Paulig. It's a cup that uses thermal energy to create a totally new social platform. Well, let's take a look back in time first. A cup of joe hasn't changed much in hundreds of years. You brew it, pour it, and drink it. We at the Paulig Coffee House wanted to bring an element of surprise to drinking coffee. We found out that coffee produces enough thermal energy to upload a picture on an e-ink display, and boom, Paulig Muki was born.
Okay, I'm going to pause that there. Now that's different from what I was telling you about. This is a different example of how they work, rather than putting McDonald's advertising within a video game. This has to do with images on a coffee cup, but it's a different way of reaching an audience, different way of promoting a product, using technology, involving the viewer, the audience directly, and not just having them be passive in looking at a television ad or reading an ad, but to become involved with the ad. Bill Gates said the future of advertising is the internet, and he said this at a time when that might not have been quite so obvious, but that still does seem to be true. Aaron Reitkoff, who is with a digital agency called Profero, says there's never been a better time to be in advertising, and there's never been a worse time to be in advertising, because so many changes have come about, and there are a lot of decisions to be made and a lot of new things to be learned and a lot of new things to be tried. So it can be great, or it can be very challenging and even frightening at times for people who've been in advertising for a very long time. All right, so that gives you some sense of where we might be going with advertising in the near future. And I hope you've enjoyed this course, and I've enjoyed talking about advertising with you. So thanks.